What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rovardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. We wanted to do a pre-game, preview episode today, but we were like, screw it, man. It's a primetime game. Let's go live for it. Let's have some fun. Let's get crazy. Let's get nuts today for this Giants versus Dallas Cowboys Thursday night football game. Do a little preview while live on the channel. Super excited to be here. Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And how are you feeling going into this Thursday night matchup?
Love a little impromptu live stream for the Giants fans. And listen, I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, the Giants are coming off a really good win. Obviously, the Browns offensive line was torn to shreds and the Giants pass rush was absolutely phenomenal. And now you look at this Dallas team and they're vulnerable. Their defense, we're going to talk about it, kind of how we think that we can beat this team. There are a lot of ways that the Cowboys are beating themselves right now. Their defense, post Dan Quinn is having a lot of problems. Just saying what's up to the chat. Justin, what's going on, my man? Alpha Omega, what is good? I think this game starts and ends on the ground for the Giants. I'm expecting a big day from Devin Singletary. And the reason is the Dallas Cowboys have one of the worst run defenses in football. And I do think that is going to be the case once again tonight. They don't have the talent there. They don't have the strong suit to stop a Giants, offense that is doing a lot of really good stuff on the ground. Devin Singletary has been excellent aside from those two fumbles. I think that he sets the tone there. They maintain possession, don't turn the ball over, and they're gonna sneak out this win. I think this is probably going to be we'll talk about something in a second, whether it's going to be an over or under. But I think if the Giants manage to effectively keep the ball, maintain possession, we're going to see a really close game. But if this Dallas offense wakes up and they start marching on our secondary, who, by the way, we don't have Drew Phillips or Adoree Jackson, it could be tough. It might be difficult to stop that passing game. Of course, CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks and Dak Prescott's been going crazy the last couple of weeks. So, Anthony, when you look at this Dallas offense, how do you stop them? It really comes down to the secondary and the pass rush, putting pressure on Dak Prescott, forcing him to speed up his processing. The more time he has, the easier it's going to be for him to pick us apart. We have to make him a little bit nervous in there and make premature decisions. That's the only way we're going to be able to stop them from passing all over us for the most part.
Yeah, answered the question. That's exactly what I was going to say. The Giants are going to stop the Dallas Cowboys offense by forcing the ball out of Dak Prescott's hands as soon as possible. But I will dive deeper into that and say the Cowboys have two starters on their offensive line tonight who are rookies. Center Cooper Beebe, go ahead and eat Dexter Lawrence, and left tackle Tyler Guyton. Go ahead and eat Brian Burns. That's the key here. And we've been talking about that every single week. You said it last week. Finally, the Giants pass rush got home against a bruised and battered Cleveland Browns offensive line. They had 8 sacks on Deshaun Watson, and they ended up winning the game as a result. Tonight, it needs to be a similar story. Brian Burns has to get in the backfield. Maybe another strip sack, at least a couple of pressures on Dak Prescott, force some errant throws, get the ball out of his hands quickly. And also, I think that's going to happen because Dexter Lawrence going up against a rookie center, he's going to get double teamed, maybe even triple teamed on some plays. So you are getting one-on-one opportunities for Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. And again, Brian Burns going up against a rookie offensive tackle. I think that he can feast on a rookie offensive tackle and get to Dak Prescott from the blind side. And like you mentioned, getting the ball out of Dak's hands quickly is so important because the longer that he's able to stand in the pocket, throw the ball, wait for receivers to get open, the more likely that he's going to have wide receivers who are wide open. Because, yeah, Deonte Banks has been close in coverage, but his ball skills have been a problem. We've talked about that. He's been letting up a lot of contested catches. On top of that, Drew Phillips out of the game. So our nickel cornerbacks are Cordell Flott and Isaiah Simmons. Tell me, you think either of those two guys have a chance against CeeDee Lamb? I don't really think so. This Giants secondary, it's banged up, it's bruised, it's battered. It could be what makes or breaks this game for the Giants, but the best way to mask a weak secondary is with a very strong pass rush. Force the ball out of Dak Prescott's hands as fast as possible, and that's going to be the way that the Giants can gain an edge on the defensive side of the ball. It's going to be really important. But I honestly do, Alex, I expect a lot of points in this one. I think there's going to be some points flying on the board. So quickly, I do want to discuss the bet that I'm making. You guys know it. I'm on a little bit of a win streak here, right? I'm on a 3-bet win streak. I want to give you guys my bet for 10 nights game as well. Go ahead, taking a look at this. I'm taking the total over on points. I took the under on points in my last 2 bets, hit both of those. We're switching it up here. We're taking the over rather than the under because, first of all, the Cowboys have been putting up a lot of points. And second of all, this Giants team, They have a great matchup here where their rushing attack has been solid. The Cowboys' rushing defense has been terrible. And on Thursday Night Football, oftentimes we get blowouts, but at the end of the day, we often get a lot of shootouts, a lot of sloppy defense and points abundant. And I think that with the way that Malik Neighbors has been playing and the fact that the Giants are playing better, just generally speaking, I'm actually going to take the over on points in this one, throw down a little $10 like always, and hope to cash with some money today. Make sure you guys go check out the link in the description box to sign up with our link for BetUS, 125% deposit match. Really great promo right there from BetUS. Fastest sports book, or fastest payouts out of any sports book in the industry. So go ahead and check it out. But Alex, why do you think points might fly up on the board today? Do you like my bet of over 45 points total in this game? And why do you think the Giants might be able to find the end zone a few times in tonight's matchup?
I mean, listen, the Giants, and listen, I see people saying it's going to rain. It's not raining tonight, and this afternoon it is in New York City right now. It's a little drizzle, but later today it's going to be fine. As for the BetUS, use the code YouTube150, 150% match, 125% match on the next 2 deposits. They're giving out free money, guys. I mean, go take advantage of that. But, when you're talking about the Giants, I think it starts and ends in the run game. I said this earlier. Like, it's going to be Devin Singletary's game to shine, maintain possession. In fact, I'll go as far as to say this. I think they should take exactly what the Washington Commanders did to us and replicate it for what the Giants should do to the Cowboys tonight. A lot of short yard stuff, like get the ball into space. You have Malik Neighbors on Trayvon Diggs. Listen, Diggs is extremely fast. He's really good in those short to intermediate ranges, but they have to clear out sides of the field. And I do think that what we saw the last 2 weeks with Malik Neighbors, they asked the opposing cornerback to navigate traffic. They had a lot of crossing concepts. And as long as we're not running into opposing DBs and getting those penalties, we're going to be fine here. If you have Neighbors who's skinny, thin, like can do a lot of these, like kind of get through those smaller gaps, you can kind of maximize his skill set by getting him into space, clearing out a side of the field, allowing him to pick up yards after the catch. I think like 50% of his yards up at this point are all on Yak. So like, we love that. I think we should get some nice screens in this game. I think Wandale's going to have a solid performance. I think that Singletary get a couple screen passes. Tyrone Tracy may even get involved in the passing game as well. When it comes to this system, though, I don't expect big games from Slayton. I know he's questionable. I'm not thinking Slayton has a big game. I don't think Hyatt really gets involved in this one very much. But most of all, there will be a couple chances here, Anthony, when Daniel Jones has to throw the football downfield. Now, this is a big talking point in the fan base right now. He's been really bad throwing the football downfield. They've been really protecting him from making mistakes. And how do they do that? Well, they're scheming Neighbors open. They're getting him easy looks. They're getting the running the football effectively. A lot of the throws, I think I talked about this in a tweet recently, like 90% of Daniel Jones's throws last week were from 0 to 9 yards and behind the line of scrimmage. They've simplified this offense to take a lot of the actual difficult throws, like the hero throws, out of the equation. They're asking him to do the basic stuff at a high level. And what he's doing it really, really well. He's actually performing at a very high level with this specific system and strategy that the Giants and Brian Daboll have implemented over the past 2 weeks. Now, the question is, do the Dallas Cowboys kind of stack the box here, take those things away, force Daniel Jones to beat them downfield, force him to make those throws? I think that's what good defenses really do. They say, well, you know what? This guy's struggling to do this. Let's make him beat us like that. Let's do that. Let's force them to be aggressive in ways that you're not really used to doing. If Jones hits on those deep passes, this could be a really, really good game for the Giants. But this may be the game that he has to break out of this funk, the game where he finally gets the accuracy back, because he's missing on these throws by a couple yards. It's not even close. So I do think that the Cowboys probably move up a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, maybe play a little bit more press, really, really stack the box here. Don't let the Giants do anything close to the line of scrimmage and force Daniel Jones to beat him with his arm, get through his progressions and do stuff like that. What do you think? Like, how do you think, like thinking of it from the Dallas's perspective, how do they go after Daniel Jones in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're kind of right in the sense that they're going to dare him to throw the ball deep because he just hasn't done it effectively so far this season. He's thrown the ball 20 plus yards downfield only 9 times through 3 games. He's completed only 2 of those passes for 53 yards. So it hasn't been great when throwing downfield. There's been a lot of inaccuracy, problems with Daniel Jones, 20 plus yard passes. If he could start hitting those, though, I mean, Malik Neighbors is going from being a superstar in the making to an absolute superstar, right? If he could start getting some of those deep receptions, that would be a lot of fun to watch just from a Giants fan's perspective to see this team hit some explosive plays. but you don't need to throw the ball deep to create explosive plays. And that's what we've seen through the first 3 weeks. Brian Dable said that during the preseason. Making explosive plays isn't always about throwing the ball downfield. Sometimes it's about getting your receivers and catch and run opportunities. And that's how the Giants have been doing it so far this season. Explosive plays by getting the ball to Neighbors in space, letting him turn upfield, and create some yards after the catch and score some touchdowns that way. Those are explosive plays. And that's what the Giants have done so well over the past 3 weeks. And that's what I think they're going to continue to do well tonight, because Trayvon Diggs does not travel with opposing wide receivers. He stays on the left side of the field. The left boundary is his. He locks it down. He makes it really tough for any team to throw to the left side of the field. That's his MO. Now, Malik Neighbors typically lines up on the left side of the field. But what does he also do? He runs a lot of routes from the left side to the right side, shallow crossers, slants, deep in routes, those dig routes, backside digs. A lot of that stuff is what Malik Neighbors does so well. So even though he's going to be matched up with Trayvon Diggs one-on-one quite often, it's going to be going from Diggs over to the right side of the field. Now it's just about, does the pass protection hold up long enough against Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and everybody else to get the ball out of Daniel Jones's hands and to Malik Neighbors going from the left side to the right side of the field and creating those explosive plays. So that's going to be the key, more so than hitting those deep balls. Alex, got to get your take on this. Sit down jalapeno just put $35K on the Giants to win, Malik Neighbors a score, and Daniel Jones 2 passing touchdowns. You are a bold man, and I am praying to God that you are right for not only the Giants' sake, because if this happens, we'll all be happy, but for your sake. Because if you truly put down $35K, you're a madman, you're a strong man, and I'm very nervous for you.
Can I have a loan if we're already throwing down $35K on the Giants to beat Dallas in prime time with Daniel Jones at quarterback? I mean, God, you must be rich, or just joking around, which is more likely the scenario. But I'll tell you what, Giants to win. If Neighbors scores and Daniel Jones has 2 passing touchdowns, our chances of winning increase quite exponentially. I'll tell you that right now. But listen, looking at this game and what it means for the Giants, Anthony, that's kind of what I want to talk about, is what this game represents. John Mara is one blowout loss to Dallas in a primetime game away from throwing some chairs around, guys. Like, I genuinely just do not know what the reaction is going to be if the Giants do not have a big game in this one. They need to turn this season around, and it starts today. You know what I mean? I do genuinely believe that if the Giants win this game, season's back on. Like, they can turn this thing around. They're in the NFC East is not as strong as we thought it was. If the Dallas Cowboys lose this game, but I'll tell you what, this right now, you win this game, things change very, very, very quickly for the Giants. But if they lose this game, it reverts us back to where we were after week 1. A team that is reeling, a team that has a lot of weaknesses, a team that can't depend on our offense. Depending on how the outlook of this game ends in the end. But, what do you think is like the meaning of this game, the meaning of a win or a loss here? Like, it feels like a turning point in the season. It feels like we win, we're alive, we can get back into this thing. But if we lose, it feels like we're going to get buried, because losing a game Thursday Night Football against Dallas, how many times have we seen this one demoralize the team entirely? How many, like, they need to win this game because the momentum would send them to a much better scenario, especially because some of these opponents we're facing are maybe not as good as we think they are. How do you feel about this one, the meaning of it for the Giants?
I think it means a lot for the Giants, and I think it means a lot for Malik Neighbors. I want to bring up this comment from JW. Malik's first Thursday Night Football game. Let's hope he puts the world on notice. It's his first primetime game in general, whether it's Thursday night, Sunday night, or Monday night. This is our first look at Neighbors under the bright lights, and I think that's important because, listen, Neighbors gets a lot of comparisons to one specific Giants player, Alex, and it's Odell Beckham Jr. OBJ's first time on the under the spotlight on primetime was against Dallas. He made that one-handed catch, and he became a superstar. Will something similar happen to Malik Neighbors tonight? I'm hoping for it. I want to see it happen. Will it be a one-handed catch? I don't know. Maybe it's just a 3-touchdown game. Maybe it's a 5-touchdown game, and he's a true superstar. I don't know what's going to happen, but all I do know is Neighbors is an absolute competitor. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. There's a little beef between him and Trayvon Diggs. It's prime time. He's going to be the focal point of the offense. He's going to be the game plan. I'm excited to see Neighbors hopefully string together an absolute breakout performance on prime time and have that meteoric rise to superstardom. And what does it mean for the Giants in general as a team? Again, it means a lot for Neighbors, like I just said, to deliver on primetime. He's been doing it on these 1 o'clock windows, do it on the nighttime. But for the Giants, they're about to find out what kind of star they have, right? This primetime performance from Neighbors, and they're about to find out what kind of team they have. Short week, going up against a divisional opponent. They're 1-2. They should be 2-1. Can they make it 2-2? Restart the season. Once you're back to 500, it's anybody's game. It's basically like you're back to 0-0, in my opinion. So if the Giants can just go ahead and get this win, they could turn the whole season around. I mean, you're facing a good Dallas team. I know that they've struggled in recent seasons, or I mean, recent weeks, but this is still a good Dallas football team that has gotten the better of the Giants for years. And if you want to go back over the last 6 years, Daniel Jones has won one regular season primetime game. He has a .077 record win percentage in his career regular season primetime games. This can be a narrative shift for the Giants. They can be 2-2. They can have just knocked down a divisional opponent, and Daniel Jones could have put together a solid performance on primetime to get the confidence back from the fan base. That could be game-changing for the rest of the season. Give them that spark of momentum that they need to go on a real run here. Or they could lose once again on primetime. They could get beat up by the Cowboys. We could have question marks about Brian Dable once again in week 4, and we could start calling for his head, right? That's how this could go. It could either be a beautiful moment for the Giants or it could turn into Armageddon. We need to see how that's going to wind up here for the Giants. Ian, thank you for the donation. Really do appreciate it. One of our long-term viewers, you're here all the time. On film, safety shade away, shade Neighbors way. Slayton has ran a couple of nice deep routes. I think the Giants see that and take a deep shot to Slayton tonight. I don't know if Slayton's playing. He's got an injured thumb. He's questionable. It might be Hyatt, but either way, I like what you're saying. A lot of attention going Neighbors way. Maybe the other receiver, whether that be Slayton or Hyatt, gets a shot.
They have to. They need to get this offense into a position where they can not only run what they've been doing, but be a dangerous threat downfield. If they can get the deep passing game going, I think this is what Brian Dable's probably building up to. They've taken a couple shots here and there with Neighbors, but DJ hasn't been able to connect just yet. They had one shot with Hyatt, but he was locked down in coverage. Right now, I just kind of feel like if you're Brian Dable, this game is going to be based on momentum, right? This game is going to be flipped on its head in a blink of an eye. Just like a Devin Singletary fumble can get a team like Washington or even Cleveland back into the contest. A long touchdown to Hyatt, a long touchdown to Neighbors, a long touchdown to anybody could completely change the momentum. And when you're playing at home, Anthony, especially with a hostile bunch like Giants fans right now that are quick to send out the boo birds if the team is struggling, you need to capture their energy really quickly. You know, if you guys watched the Jets last week against the Patriots, they got that momentum and they never let it go. They completely dominated every single moment of that game. The Giants need to go into this game with the intention of dominating every single moment, with the intention of capturing that energy and using it as fuel to win this one. And ultimately, that's what it's going to come down to. And that's what deep passing does for your offense, by the way. You can't always do it. But if you get a deep throw, if you get, how many times have the Chiefs or Miami had a deep throw to Tyreek Hill and it completely changed the course of a game? If they get a deep pass here to Hyatt or Slayton or Malik Neighbors and they cash in 6 on one throw, it immediately puts pressure on the opposing offense to score. And if the defense steps up and does their job well and stops them from scoring and you get the ball back, now you have a chance to really compound on that momentum. It's the difference between winning and losing a lot of times, especially at home when the fans are begging for something to kind of do here. And Ian, appreciate the generous donation. Thank you so much. And as you said, they're going to try to shade to Neighbors' direction, but you can't, like, if you have a free safety over top, that's where you're getting a lot of opportunities on these drag routes and these concepts that have a lot of kind of traffic where they can kind of scheme him open in an open field. I expect a couple of screens, let him do what he does after the catch, a couple quick outs. I mean, look as good as Trayvon Diggs does, I do generally think that Neighbors is going to be anybody that's across from him. I think he's going to put on a show. He's proven that already. But when all is said and done, if I'm Dallas, I'm probably bracketing Neighbors and forcing somebody else to beat us. If Slayton doesn't play in this game, like Hyatt hasn't done enough to command that type of attention. Wandale, love the guy, but he's not going to go for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns, most likely. He's, more of an outlet for Daniel Jones. I do think they underused him in a lot of ways, and they did a lot more with him last week, and he made a big impact, and I'd love to see that. But, he does a lot of his damage in the middle of the football field and not on, kind of more expansive route concepts. So his stuff is a little bit more basic. But, Theo Johnson, could this be a big Theo Johnson game? Is this a game where the Giants finally have to utilize their tight ends? Anthony, what do you think about that? I think that we have not been able to get a lot of value from our tight ends recently. It's about time we got them involved. A guy like Theo Johnson, he was brought in to catch passes and be this athletic freak at the position. He's been a little bit underwhelming so far. Maybe this is a game where he makes a positive impact.
Theo Johnson is not ready for the NFL. That's my take on it. He just has not played good football so far. What he has done well, though, and I don't ever just want to dog on a player and call them bad. What he's done well is play his role in clearing out lanes for Malik Neighbors. All of those drag routes that Malik Neighbors caught in week 2 versus the Commanders were set up by Theo Johnson running downfield, running a dig route, drive concept, Neighbors wide open underneath. That's literally been his entire job through the first 3 weeks of the season, and he's doing that. But in terms of catching the football and making good blocks, he's been really struggling in that regard. It's all over the film. His hands are sloppy. His blocking has not been good. But what he is doing well is clearing space over the middle of the field for Malik Neighbors. So just let him keep doing that, and I'm fine with it. Keep him on the field. He's playing his role. Not everybody's going to touch the football a whole ton. He's probably going to have 1 or 2 catches tonight. Doesn't matter. He's at least going to make some plays for Malik Neighbors off of the football, which is what is so important. Allison asks, what does Daniel Jones need to do to be the quarterback in 2025? It's a tough question, but the first and foremost answer, start winning big-time games, and that starts tonight. Primetime versus Dallas at home, Thursday Night Football. Got to get a win here. Then we can start having the conversation about him going into 2025. Alex, how are you feeling about that?
For Jones to be the quarterback next year, a lot has to happen. I think really the way that we've been operating this offense, there's a lot of players that could do this, just screen passes, easy throws, just basically Neighbors and man coverage or scheming him open. Brian Daboll's really helped this team escape, a lot of bad decisions that Jones could have made. I mean, that pass to Malik Neighbors where he made that catch, that was a dangerous throw. Probably is an interception if it's not Malik Neighbors, but I respect him being aggressive and giving him a chance. The other one that was called back early in the game, Daniel Jones is being protected by the scheme that Daboll has developed for him a little bit. He's kind of taken a lot of his flaws away. We saw this happen, by the way, in 2022 when we made the postseason. They found a way to expand, and protect his flaws, and eventually defenses picked up on it and figured out how to stop it. I wonder if that same thing is going to happen again. Really what it comes down to is, can Daniel Jones, when defenses figure out how to get take away all the stuff he's doing, can he react and then start doing something else at a high level? Can he continue to build? This is how quarterbacks really develop, right? Teams start to realize what they're doing well, then they have to adapt, then they have to develop another part of their game, and then they keep cycling that. And then eventually become a well-balanced quarterback. That's what most players, the development probably looks like. With Daniel Jones, what happens is they adjust and he isn't able to develop in other places. So right now we're seeing the deep ball part of his game that is not existent. And that is kind of counteracting to what Brian Daboll wants to do. Daboll wants to be, and he said it in the offseason, he wants to be explosive. He wants to be downfield oriented. He wants to really attack. And the Giants have done nothing but play conservative football so far. It's worked for them to a degree, but eventually it's not going to work all the time, especially against better teams that can score and maintain possession. I do think that this is an offense that has a lot of limitations, and until that deep ball is established, it's going to be difficult against better teams. Now, the Cowboys fortunately have a bad defense right now. So I think it's going to be a heavy, the system that the Giants have been utilizing does actually work in this one, but against better defenses, it may be more difficult. So I think they just stick with what they know, stick with what they've been doing, let Malik Neighbors run the show, and Daniel Jones will benefit from that. But, for him to be the quarterback next year with his cap hits and that situation, he's going to have to start putting a lot more together. It's going to have to be a lot more intermediate throws, expanding his ability to get through his progressions, making good decisions. I mean, look, not every quarterback's going to be great all the time, but I do think that, some of these decisions have been a little bit poor at times. And then the second half of last game, he missed a lot of throws, skipped them in the dirt. He has to be consistent. We can't have one great half and then one bad half. We need to have a good all around game, and it has to be consecutive weeks. It can't just be like 1 week is good, 1 week is bad, 1 week's okay, 1 week is bad. It's got to be string together 3 or 4, all right, DJ looks great so far. He's really performing well. He's leading this team. He's being the guy that sets the tone. And that's kind of what I need to see for more consistency. That's been his biggest flaw. He's been extremely inconsistent throughout his entire career. So, developing that deep ball will be a big factor for him. But coming in and week out and just compounding good days, getting better, expanding, developing. He's only 27, 26 years old. Like he still has time to develop if they give him the right situation. His offensive line's never been better. He's never had a player as good as Malik Neighbors at the receiver position. He's never had a play call like Dable, who's really figuring out ways to like get him involved here in special ways. I do think that this team is trending in a better direction. Daniel Jones is showing signs of progress, but it has to be consistent. And when teams start to counteract him, I do think that he has to step up and elevate his game in other ways. So, there's a lot of football left to be played. This conversation will definitely be changing throughout the course of a season. But right now, I'm still personally on the boat of like, they're probably going to move on from him. He's got to really have a great rest of the year for me to change my mind on that. Like a really great rest of the year. He's got to throw for like 30 touchdowns this year and have over like 4,000 passing yards. Like that's how I see him getting out of the weeds here. But of course that's very unlikely, but who knows? He's had a couple of good weeks. Now just got to keep compounding those.
Yep, it's all about finding consistency for Daniel Jones. Again, it starts with getting a win tonight on prime time. He hasn't won like any primetime games in his career, only one in the regular season. It's got to change tonight. And he's going to need the help from his offensive line. As Sam has mentioned down here, the Giants need to give Daniel Jones a clean pocket, but he also needs help from his defense as well. And this defense has a few tough matchups here, as Pete just pointed out. Pete, thank you so much for the donation. He points out that Jake Ferguson, the tight end for the Dallas Cowboys, is the first good tight end that the Giants have faced so far this season. Do we have an answer for him, or do we have to rely on our pass rush to mitigate our vulnerable secondary? So both, I think, are true. We do have an answer, and we do have to rely on our pass rush. The pass rush is part of the answer, but the pass rush is more so the way of mitigating CeeDee Lamb and the wide receivers. Getting the ball out of Dak Prescott's hands quickly will prevent CeeDee Lamb and the others from going off in that regard. Do we have an answer for tight end Jake Ferguson? I think we do, and it's actually related to the fact that Drew Phillips is not going to be in this game, which is going to put Isaiah Simmons on the field more. And he's a linebacker / safety / cornerback who matches up perfectly for tight ends. So rather than seeing more Cordell Flott in this game because we're scared of CeeDee Lamb, I'm sure we'll see him plenty, and we are scared of CeeDee Lamb. I think that one of the things the Giants can do is double team CeeDee Lamb by having safety help over top and having a cornerback shadow him and push him into a zone where the safety is. And then meanwhile, take the tight end away, take away the middle of the field safety valve from Dak Prescott with Isaiah Simmons matched up on Jake Ferguson. That's kind of what I see for it, Alex. Are you worried about Jake Ferguson? You think he's one of these playmakers that gets busy, or do you like the way the Giants match up against him?
The Giants have traditionally always struggled against Dallas tight ends, and this is probably not going to end today. I also like Bobby Okereke. I know he doesn't normally drop into coverage like that, but I could see him covering some zones if Ferguson's kind of playing in the middle of the field. But like you said, the kind of jumbo, kind of defensive back and Isaiah Simmons, multi-purpose player. He's got the size, he's got the athletic profile. It may end up becoming like that matchup may be what determines whether or not the Dallas Cowboys march down the field or not. I think Deonte Banks against CeeDee Lamb is going to be the one to watch, but we'll see. He probably won't be traveling into the slot, which will definitely put the Giants in a difficult spot. I think Nick McLeod's going to play a lot in this game as well, and Cordell Flott in the slot. But this is interesting. Ferguson, good player. Dallas finds ridiculous levels of talent in mid rounds all the times with tight ends. Giants trying to hit on one in Bellinger and Theo Johnson hasn't really resulted in much just yet. But we'll see how that progresses. I do think, as Pete mentioned, do we think that he's going to be an answer for them? It's tough. This Giants secondary is flawed in a lot of ways, but you're at home. You got the fans behind you. You have a lot of momentum coming off last week, and your pass rush was elite. Listen, if they force Dak Prescott to speed up his processing, guys like Jake Ferguson won't have as many good chances because he needs a little bit more time to get into his route. There's a bigger guy, not as quick, not as agile. If they force Dak Prescott to throw the ball quickly, it's going to take their tight end game a lot away, unless it's more so just like flat routes, easy concepts, just hitches and stuff like that. So, which you'll take if you're a Giants defense and you're happy with getting 3-4 yard hitches and not deep seam routes. You know what I mean? Like you're happy with that. So, I think that this pass rush really is the catalyst behind what hopefully will be a Giants win on the defensive side, they have to be the unit that steps up and protects the secondary, because the secondary is weak. Deontay Banks gives up a lot of yards. He's not that he's bad in coverage. It's just he's playing against really good freaking receivers, and they tend to be really good at catching the football, even in traffic, even in sticky coverage. So, right now I do think that Dallas will move the ball on us, but we have to have a bend, don't break mentality. If we can hold them to field goals, score touchdowns on a weaker, kind of run defense from Dallas, I think we can sneak out a win here. It's not going to be raining, so I do think that there will be lots of passing in this one. But keep in mind that wind in net life it's tough sometimes. So I do think that will factor into how many deep chances the Giants do take. I think they do apply a very similar strategy on offense that they have been over the past couple weeks.
No doubt. I think the tight ends are actually going to play a key role in this game, but not in a reception and yardage standpoint. Like I said earlier, with Theo Johnson clearing out space for Malik Neighbors, I think Jake Ferguson does the same thing for CeeDee Lamb in many ways. And Gio is also right to point out that Ferguson is working back from a knee injury. He's not at 100% anyway, so he's not a guy that I think makes or breaks this game for Dallas or for the Giants. I think he's just somebody who you got to keep an eye on, but you got to focus all of your attention primarily as a defense on CeeDee Lamb and hope that Dak Prescott doesn't have enough time in the pocket to pick us apart with Lamb. Jacob, thank you for the donations back to back here. You're asking, will Bellinger ever play a real role this season? Probably not. Unfortunate to say. I think he's been reduced to being the primary blocking tight end for a couple of reasons. One, the Giants' offensive line was so bad last year, he played a lot of basically swing tackle, just chipping pass rushers from the tight end spot. Think he's going to continue to do that, unfortunately, a lot this season, just to give some extra support to this offensive line. And also, the Giants like Theo Johnson because he's athletic. Again, he's not touching the ball much. When the ball is thrown Theo Johnson's way, he seems to drop half of his attempts to catch the ball. He's really not a great player right now, but he's athletic, he has potential, and his athleticism allows him to clear out linebackers, safeties, and cornerbacks for other receivers. It's that hidden element of football where you're not showing up in the stat sheet, but you are impacting the game. And right now, Theo Johnson's athleticism is allowing them to open things up for other players. So it's probably going to be Theo Johnson throughout the majority of the season. Bellinger likely only getting on the field here and there for underneath routes and a lot of blocking opportunities. But Alex, what are your thoughts on Daniel Bellinger?
And Bellinger, yeah, they've kind of, drafting Theo Johnson kind of ended his hope of becoming like a key component on this offense. I think Bellinger is a solid blocker. They'll use a lot of 12 personnel. He'll be out there for the running game. He'll be out there as an outlet every now and then. So every now and then they scheme him the ball, but it's rare. It's not something that we're going to see very frequently. Theo Johnson has the most upside. You said earlier you don't think he's ready for the NFL. The way he's been playing, I tend to agree with you. But that doesn't mean he can't be. And I think that this is the type of player that will benefit a lot from just being kind of introduced by fire, right? Like just thrown into the fire. They don't have many other options. He does have a stupendous amount of talent athletically. I think he's just having a hard time picking up the pace of the defense of opposing defenses, right? Like you watch him at Penn State. He's been really, really good in the past at the collegiate level. So fast, such a good red zone threat. He tended actually last year, Anthony, to build into the year as it went on. During the second half of the year, he was much better than the first half. So I wonder if that happens to him this year, where he really struggles in the first half to, kind of adjust to the difference in speed, difference in, physicality. But then, second half of the year, it all starts to click for him and he gets better. He's a young guy. He's got so much potential and so much, is a perfect frame for the tight end position. The Giants have to continue their development in him. And keep giving him reps. Even if he's not ready, I think he should still play a very important role on this team because they need him to be ready at some point. And there's no way he's ever going to be ready if he doesn't get these experiences now and struggles now. It's not like quarterback where sometimes it can stall you. Like playing tight end, like you have to be out there. So I do think that right now it's essential that he's going to have these issues, going to have these problems. But end of the day, I do think it comes around. And he ends up putting together a strong finish to the season. And then next year, he takes a big jump forward. That's kind of how I project things to go with him. But I think that's kind of traditionally the case for a lot of mid to late round players. Like they just need the experience and then they get better in year two.
Yeah, I'm with you. And like I said, he is making an impact. It's just not on the stat sheet. He's clearing out wide open spaces for Malik Neighbors. It's very important. If you guys haven't seen the film breakdowns that I've posted on the channel of Neighbors, go check them out because it'll open your eyes to that. Theo Johnson playing a key role in the shadows here, basically. He's kind of like Batman. Theo Johnson is the Batman of this offense is how I'm going to describe him. So that'll be my fun way to refer to Theo Johnson going forward. But as we wind this thing down, Alex, it's time. Score predictions, player predictions. How are we feeling? What are you thinking? Giants winning? Giants losing? What's the score?
Oh, I think this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be 23 to 20. 23 to 20 Giants.
The under.
Well, hey, you know what? If I'm wrong, you win. So it's not like it's that we both win either way. Either the Giants win or the over hits. So I do think that in any case, we're winning in this one. But I do think that this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a lot of bend don't break defense in this one. I think the red zone defenses are tough in this game. But in the red zone, like, it's going to be Neighbors. Like, he is their winner. He's the guy that gets the targets now. And if you're Dallas, you're doing everything possible to stop Neighbors in the red zone. So it should be fun. Maybe we do get a tight end touchdown in this one. Maybe we do see a Theo Johnson touchdown in this one, because nobody's expecting it. I could totally see it happening. So we'll remember that for game night tonight. But I do like this. The Giants have some momentum here. Dallas's defense is susceptible. Dallas has no running game, by the way. They have to throw the football. Dowdry and Ezekiel Elliott are just totally cooked. Like, they're just not very good. And their offensive line isn't doing much to help open up running lanes for them. So I do think the Giants dominate the trenches in this one. But in the end, I do think that it comes down to the secondary and the pass rush most of all. The pass rush has to hit home. Otherwise, the secondary is going to get cooked. So that's kind of my final takeaway from it.
And the pass rush needs to be mitigated. The Giants need to make sure that Micah Parsons doesn't Micah Parsons Daniel Jones. We need to make sure that Daniel Jones is not violated by Parsons in this game. So Andrew Thomas has to have a big performance for sure. I'm thinking the over is going to hit. That's why I placed the bet. I'm trying to extend my win streak to 4. I think the touchdown scores tonight, Neighbors and Singletary. One of them's getting 2. One of them's getting 1. I don't know which one, but one of them is getting a brace. One of them is scoring 1. There's going to be a few touchdowns on the board. And honestly, Alex, sleeper pick here. If we're talking anytime touchdowns, we wanted to pick some Giants players. Daniel Jones anytime touchdown sounds kind of realistic to me. Doesn't sound unreasonable. I think it could happen. Maybe he runs one in. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. This is a tough one to predict. It's a Thursday night matchup between the Giants and the Cowboys. Those haven't gone well for the Giants in recent years. It's the first of 2 Thursday night matchups between these 2 teams this season. Second one will be on Thanksgiving. I'm interested to see how all of this goes. But tonight, I guess I'll go ahead and take the Giants 28-25. It's going to be a close one. I think the Giants have the juice right now, the momentum building. I think they're going to go ahead and somehow pick out a win versus Dallas and shock them at home. So should be a lot of fun. I'm hoping to see the Neighbors superstar be born. And hopefully Daniel Jones and the rest of this team can fire on all cylinders and pick up a clutch win. But that's pretty much going to do it. Alex, you got any closing thoughts for the Fireside Giants audience?
Let's just go, man. This is a pinnacle moment in our season. This is a catalyst for turning things around. This is the type of game that gives Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll a second life. You know what I mean? They were red hot just 2 weeks ago, and now we're sitting here with a chance to turn this thing around, to turn the ship and head the right direction and potentially save Daboll and Joe Schoen's job. Like, this is the game. If they lose this game in blowout fashion, Brian Daboll's like staring in the face of being fired, and Joe Schoen's in the same boat. So, right now I think this is a game that we could look back on in a couple months from now and say to ourselves, this one decided Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll's fate with the Giants. And if they lose and it's a competitive game, I still think it maybe saves them, but a blowout in this game would erase all the good that we've compounded recently, and it would certainly put us in a bad spot. But I do think this Giants team has some fight in them. I think Dexter Lawrence is going to have a big game tonight. I think Brian Burns, prime time against Dallas, this is what he got paid for. I think he has a big game tonight. But I do think it's going to be a shootout in a lot of ways. And I do think there's going to be a lot of offense in this one. A lot of big moments, maybe a couple turnovers too. So we'll see what happens. But I'm pretty excited about this one. The Giants have historically been really, really bad in prime time. When are they going to turn it around? When are they going to flip the script? Now would be a good time to do it.
It's got to happen now. You're right. This could be a game that gets Brian Daboll the confidence of the fan base back, or it could be the game that gets him right back on a boiling hot seat. John Mara said this season he needs to see significant progress. I don't think you can call anything significant progress unless the Giants start beating teams like Philly and Dallas, especially on prime time. I think the Giants really need a win here. This needs to be a Daniel Jones signature performance at home on a Thursday night game. If he could do this, he can change a lot of narratives and gain a lot of confidence back from these fans. But it's going to be an interesting one. We're excited for it. And of course, we'll hit you guys with a post-game reaction, of course, like we always do. All of our takeaways, thoughts, and analysis. But make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this live stream. Comment below if you want more live streams for New York Giants content. Make sure to go check out BetUS. This content is powered by them. And of course, we'll catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.